camera during my presentation. I think it's great at the end when we ask questions on camera, but totally up to you if you want to be on camera during the presentation.
It's fine, sure.
All right, so it is 12:01, so let's get started. Hi everyone, my name is Eric Lee. I am an alumni of the GGU School of Tax, and I'm also a professor here. I've been a full-time faculty member for 7 years, and I was an adjunct for 14 years before that. 20 years in the business of taxation, working at a combination of 3 firms: KPMG, BDO, and Deloitte. I always say if they invite me to the Accounting Hall of Fame, I will wear my Deloitte jersey because I spent 11 years there. So I want to let my cohorts who are also leading the session introduce themselves. I'll send it over to Cindy.
I do recognize several of your names. I'm Cindy Goldberg. I've spoken with most of you, I believe. I am the Assistant Director for Academic Advising for the tax program at GGU. I was a practicing attorney for 25 years, and the last 8 years I've been working in academia primarily with graduate tax studies. I'll hand it off to my sidekick, Rocco.
Hello, everybody, and welcome. We have people joining as we're speaking. That's wonderful. My name is Rocco Lamanna. I am the Associate Dean for the Braden School of Taxation. And I have my hands in a lot of different pots, so to speak. I work with Cindy very closely, helping students get through the process. She does most of the work. I get to do the last piece, fun stuff. And then I get to work with faculty, including Eric, who is wonderful with really leading the charge for a lot of things that we do in the School of Tax, events and different exciting things that he'll be talking about today. So that's me in a nutshell. I work with students on a variety of different levels, and so I look forward to seeing each and one of you somewhere, somehow, in our system, in our university.
Great. Well, I want to welcome everybody. I didn't get a chance to directly talk to some of the people who just joined, but we want to welcome everyone. Format of today is Rocco, Cindy, and I are kind of lecture, tell you the things we think you most would want to know about our School of Taxation here. We're going to endeavor to try to get done by 12:45 or 12:50 at the absolute latest, so we can spend the last 10 minutes answering your questions, which you can type in the chat, or you can unmute and even take off your video if you are able or have that inclination to ask your questions. So as I'm giving this presentation, to the extent you have questions, please note them so you don't forget to ask at the end. Also note that you will have access to all the slides that I'm sharing, so don't feel like you have to take copious notes of everything you see in the slides. You'll have access to them. Alrighty, so I am going to share my screen and go over to the webinar slides. Okay, so I always like to put myself in your guys' shoes of if I was attending a webinar, what would I want to know? And the number one thing I want to know is what differentiates GGU from other universities that offer a School of Taxation, because you clearly have a choice. And kind of nail it down to a couple of key things. The first, I think, is the classroom experience. You know, as an alumni, I can speak to the fact that it is very rare that we have a class size over 25, and I think that our average class size for our required classes are somewhere around 15 or 16, and even less for our elective classes. That's contrary to my alma mater at undergrad, UC Berkeley, where I was in an auditorium of like 200 or 300 students. And because you have that small class size, you get to know the faculty member as well as your fellow students. Really think it's important to know that what you learn in the classroom has direct applicability to the real world. I'm always get a great feeling when students come up to me during the semester or the next semester and say, you know, I use what we talked about in class all the time. It really has lots of applicability. like our location downtown. We're near all the different firms, which makes it handy in recruiting time to get speakers and for them to come to our events. But guess what? Now that we're doing more and more things virtually, I think even if you never visit our downtown location, you can get benefit of it because of the relationships we have. Right across the street is Deloitte. Literally next door is E&Y. At the end of the block is KPMG, and about 4 or 5 blocks away is PwC. And that's where we get a lot of our faculty from, our adjunct faculty. A lot of them work in the public accounting firms or at large corporations. I'm going to talk a lot about our actual tax offerings, and we're also proud of our ranking. I'll let you do the research on your own about how GGU's ranking is, but you should be dubious. I know I am. Anytime anyone says they're ranked high, there's 2 questions you should have. Who is doing the ranking, and what criteria are they using for the ranking? And it's taxtalent.com, which, I'm most proud of our ranking because they're an independent organization, and they do their rankings based on surveys to tax recruiters about what masters in tax programs they recruit for and why. And you can go to their website to hear more about it. But I think for the last 6 years, we've been ranked #1 3 of those 6 years, and in the top 4 all of those 6 years. So what is the acronym actually spells out the beginning letter, the word career, which really gets down to it. I mean, the reason I came to Golden Gate as a student was because I was told over and over that it's going to help my career in taxation. So, and now being a teacher, hopefully I can explain to you, but Rocco and I, by the end of this seminar, why coming at GGU will help your career. Obviously, all the tax technical knowledge helps, but we're also going to talk about things we do outside of the classroom that will help you in your career. Okay, what's the benefits in general about getting a master's in tax? It's going to help you in a variety of career paths. Public accounting, which I've talked about before. If you're not familiar with public accounting, those are firms that provide tax compliance and tax consulting for clients. And the benefit of working in public accounting is you get a really wide range of clients that you can work on and build your knowledge base. Also, you can work in private industry, which means working in, for example, at one corporation's tax department, doing all the tax compliance and our tax consulting for that one entity. You can work with the government or a nonprofit. We're proud of the fact that our students get hired. Now, some of our students come in already having jobs, but some of our students, especially our full-time students, don't have jobs. And if they do well in the program and they take advantage of our other resources to get them ready in the recruiting process, they do really well in the recruiting process. And the other things of benefits is you're developing that professional network and that academic network, which I think at GGU, it's really easy because, like I said, a small class size and some of the clubs and organizations that we have on campus. And you should never feel alone, whether it's in the classroom, your instructor is very available to you, but also for mentoring and support, everyone from the dean down to the advisors can help you. You just need to let them know that you need help. Where do our alumni work? This is a chart where the bigger the bubble, the more alumni we currently have working there. So it's not surprising that a lot of the big 4 firms are represented real well: Deloitte, KPMG, EY, and PwC, the big public accounting firms. But also you see mid-tier firms like BPM, and as well as a lot of companies, whether it be Wells Fargo, Uber, and so on. All right, let's talk about the actual curriculum in a master's in tax. And it starts with 2 foundational skills courses: research and individuals. I'm going to go out on a limb and just tell you, even though I don't teach the course, tax research is the most important class in our program. Why? Because the Internal Revenue Code, if you stack up the Harry Potter series, which I think are 7 books, they only make up half the Internal Revenue Code. But tax law is not limited to the Internal Revenue Code. You have the regulations which interpret the code, you have revenue rulings and revenue procedures, and you have a myriad of case law. No human being can possibly know even a small fraction of all that information. So what separates great practitioners, average practitioners, is their ability to effectively and efficiently research all that information to get out the correct answer that you're searching for. And that's what that class is all about. And it also talks to you about how to document that research. Because how you document that research depends on the audience that you're presenting to. It could be documenting just a letter to the file. It could be a letter to the client, which has to be more easy to understand language, layman's language. Or it could be a letter to the IRS, which is making an argument on behalf of your client. So that's tax research. Individuals, deep dive on all of the tax law affecting individuals. I teach that course, and I can tell you that it's been a tough course to teach over the last 2 or 3 years because we've had constant changes from the 2017 Tax Cuts and Jobs Act to the most recent in 2020 CARES Act, which has changed a bunch of the rules that affects the class. The tax operating rules, characterization, whether your tax ordinary income, capital gains, and what the ramifications of that is, tax timing, when is income and when is deductions taken in which year, and what is the tax planning that comes with that, and tax procedures, how do you deal with the IRS? What are the rules in dealing with the IRS? What are your rights as the taxpayer? What can they ask for as a part of an audit, and what can't they ask for? And what happens if you disagree with the conclusion of an audit? What are your rights? So that's a really good class. You got to take that class. It's a required class in the Masters of Tax, but if you're advising clients, it's critical to understand tax procedures if you have any dealings with the Internal Revenue Service. And then finally, a deep dive into corporations and partnerships. I spend time in this session going over each of these classes because I want you to understand the depth and the breadth of the knowledge you're going to learn when you get a master's in taxation. And then the last 3 classes are elective classes. So when you're thinking about a master's in tax program, think 10 classes. 7 of the 10 classes are required, 3 electives of your choice. So total 30 units. Now, what electives you choose, I always say, is what are you interested in? What are the areas that you're likely going to be practicing? Because it's always best to work in an area that you're practicing. I know one of the people on the call mentioned they were interested in a certificate of taxation. So in addition to a master's in tax, you can get these shorter programs that we call certificates. So you see there are 15 or 12 units. But these classes in a certificate, some of these classes can be used as electives in your Master's of Tax. For example, Certificate of International Taxation. I can tell you what 3 of the 5 classes are. The first begins with a Principles of International Tax class, which I highly recommend if you're going to be dealing with cross-border transactions. It's a great class. I took it. It deals with both inbound and outbound. Inbound is foreign entities or persons that are doing business here in the United States. Outbound is U.S. entities or persons that are doing business abroad. And then after you finish that class, you can get even more, and you do get more if you're doing a Certificate in International Taxation, with a deep dive purely in inbound and a deep dive, a separate class in outbound. Other electives you can take are, if you work on high net worth individuals, trust and estates, great classes to take as electives. If you're doing business across states, which is so easy in this economy with the internet to do business across states, knowing state and local taxation is really important. There are also really good electives that aren't listed here as a part of a certificate program. There's a choice of entity class, which compares S corps to LLCs to partnerships. There's accounting for income taxes course, which talks about if you're part of an audit, how do you audit all of the tax accounts? So a lot of good options. The complaint I've heard from students about taking electives is they can't choose. There's so many electives they want to take, and they only want to take 3 because there's only 3 that's required, and they don't know which to take.
And Eric, I would just add to that we've just introduced 2 new classes in analytics, data analytics in the tax profession. And so those are also options for your electives, and you'll see those listed on our online catalog.
And I can briefly talk about a certificate of taxation. That's like a mini master's in tax. So that is only 12 units. It's only 4 classes. You can choose to do that and then decide to keep going and do a master's in tax. Or if you do a master's in tax and then decide just cut short and just get a certificate, that's fine too. All right. I talked about it a little bit at the beginning for people who join early. There's 3 formats that we offer classes in. Format 1 is in-person. Format 2 is purely asynchronous online, meaning you don't meet at any day or time. And option 3 is web conferencing, which is basically what we're doing now. You meet at a set date and time, and the instructor runs the class, and you're participating from home, but you're via web conferencing and have your webcam enabled and all that good stuff. Both for online and web conferencing, there's no on-campus requirement, so you can be, and that includes like even taking exams. You take exams remotely. The difference between online and web conference, the major difference is web conference is live. You meet at a set day and time over Zoom. Online is asynchronous, and I will talk to you about that experience in a moment, as in right now. So this is our e-learning platform. And if you're taking an asynchronous online class, so you're not meeting at a set date and time, this is what a typical week will look like for your class. So the week begins on a Sunday. So the instructor opens the week for a Sunday. You get the learning objectives and assignments. So you're told, hey, this is what you need to read. These are the problems you needed to do for the week. And usually there's some type of video or narrated PowerPoint, which is kind of the lecture for the week. So you watch that. And then you do your assignment. And then here's where the magic happens. The magic happens is throughout the week, you participate in the discussion forums. Most of the classes, the discussion forums are generated by the problems or case studies that the instructor assigns. So they'll post the question or case study, and then as students, you respond to the different discussion problems. The discussion is just that, a back and forth discussion. But since you don't meet any set date and time, you're not having that discussion all at once. You're having it periodically throughout the week. So I tell people, if they're taking asynchronous online, you don't have to meet at a set date and time, but you do have to log on at least 5 days each week. And what that means is you can log in early in the morning, at the lunch break, at the end of the whatever time that you want, but you have to be engaged every day for 5 days of the week. And then at the end of the week, usually there's some type, they release the problem solutions, and there's some type of quiz, and then it redoes, the process repeats itself the following week with new material. Okay, so web conference, I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this because you know what the web conference experience is because you see it. You're on it right now. But it includes the ability for the instructor to use a whiteboard and the ability to annotate. I can annotate right now. So if I had a clear whiteboard, I could write on it, I could check mark, I can talk, I can use a polling, and whatever I would use in an in-person class to write on the board, I write on a whiteboard. I can share my screen and share a pure whiteboard on Zoom and write on that if I want to. So I can clear all my drawings so that's not staying on. So I'm happy to answer any other questions you guys have about the web conference experience. I've taught it multiple semesters now, and I really like it. I actually enjoy teaching via web conference. And before I was always one that said, I like being in the same room and teaching, but I think I get that same experience being web conference, and I don't have the hour-plus commute each way that I would otherwise have. All right. Okay, so Rocco or Cindy, did you want to talk about the cohort schedule, or would you like me to talk about it?
I'll jump in, and then
Is it
Cindy,
too
feel
late,
free
by
to-
the way? Is it too late for them to join this year's cohort?
No, absolutely not. I'll jump in and start off, and then Cindy, feel free to add if I miss anything. So the cohort is a 9-month program. It is designed in a very fast, accelerated fashion, 9 months, still the same courses, same material, but it's just consolidated into 9 months. It starts July 27th. We will have 2 orientations on July 23rd and 24th, 2 required dates. The first 9 weeks, there's 3 terms, the first 2 terms being 9 weeks each. You will see there's 3 courses, and those are the same 3 courses that Eric already talked about. The research class, the advanced federal income tax class, and then TA 330, which is the characterization class. So those are all in the first 9 weeks, those 3 classes. Second term, 9 weeks as well. It doesn't end December 20th, it ends December 4th. I've got to fix that slide, sorry about that. You have 3 more classes, including the new class on data analytics. We've built that in as one of the courses. So you will have 6 of the 10 courses completed in the first 2 9-week sessions, 18 weeks completed. And then come back for the 3rd term, which you will be able to do an internship if you choose to do that, or you can take any number of electives. And then you'll have 2 required courses, TA 319, which is the federal tax procedures class that Eric also already described. This one's offered over 5 weeks on Saturdays. It's taught by one of our top level IRS professional or IRS officials who comes in and teaches this. And then Eric's class, TA 338, which is tax timing, he'll be teaching that in the spring term as well. And it all ends on April 24th. It is very, very accelerated. As I've said already, cohort is a really neat model because it's a group of students moving through the program together. And therefore, you build a bond and a relationship with those students, and you become study buddies. You almost become family. And you have a more intimate relationship with each other as well as with the professors in how you work through the program. It's a great program if you're looking to get started and get done early. If you're interested in applying, you'll have to work with Cindy right away because it does start July 27th, which seems like a far long distance away, but it's not. It goes really quickly. And so anything else, Cindy? I'm just kind of giving a high level overview, but please feel free.
Sure, I'll just add, this program is not designed for working students. It's for students who want to go to school full time. These classes, unlike the other classes, for the first 2 terms at least, are offered during the daytime. And as you can see, you're doing 3 classes in 9 weeks. So it really is designed for people who intend to go to school full time. That's about all I'll add.
Yeah, and we are going to be doing a live video feed just like we're doing today, at least for the first term and possibly for both the first and second terms.
All right, I had 2 points to make and both of you just took both of them. So I'm moving on. I don't get to talk about the cohort. All right, let's move on to professional events. So I made a big statement at the beginning of the session. I said, one differentiating factor for GGU is I think we can really help someone in a tax career, not just with the technical knowledge, but some of the other things that we do. Well, what are some of the other things that we do? We run a bunch of professional events. And I know a number of people on this call are far enough away from our campus. And I think you're going to benefit from this because where a lot of these events used to take place on our campus, we are now, because of COVID, really working harder to try to figure out how to do these virtually or like over Zoom. And we're still working on it, but I think that we're going to be able to offer a bunch of these things to Zoom. So all of our students, regardless of where they are, can benefit from them. So the Lunch and Learn workshops are really all of the kind of skill sets that we feel like you should know that you don't learn in your classes. That can include like Excel skills. That could include maybe a some tax technical. We do an accounting for income tax class, and we do like reading escrow statements. But also, most of the events in the Lunch and Learn are social skills. So we talk about networking, how to do that, how to get the most out of the career fair. How do you write a resume? How do you write a cover letter? What are your interview skills? And I have to tell you, some of the things we talk about, even if you're an experienced person, it's not bad to clean up on things. I know after I worked at Deloitte, I didn't really do a lot of interviewing when I worked at Deloitte over 11 years. But when I was coming here at Golden Gate, I had to dust off the resume and really start to work again at how to write update my resume and highlight important skill sets, and how do I interview. I needed to practice, because even though I had interviewed other people, I hadn't been on the side of being an interviewee for a while. So even if you think you're pretty good, I think you'll get a lot out of those sessions if you haven't done it recently. Now, I will talk about two other programs, the Practice Business Luncheon and the Career Fair. Rocco, these two sessions, which used to be offered in person, what is the plan this year?
I don't know, you tell me.
Put you on the spot.
Yeah, so we are going to be doing those events virtually, which is really exciting because, you know, people have been under quarantine, and this whole thing of COVID and the pandemic has been kind of life altering. But it's also had a lot of communities, including education, rethink how we do things. And I think it's brought out some opportunities that will really benefit students who physically can't be in one space at one time. So the Practice Business Luncheon and the Career Fair are going to be done virtually. We work very closely with the Office of Career Planning to help our students get networking opportunities, and their major event, which lands on late September, Friday, September 20th, I believe it is the Career Fair. And what we've done is we've actually partnered with them in a way to build on another networking event on that same day, which is the Practice Business Luncheon. In the previous iterations of the Practice Business Luncheon, it was an actual physical luncheon. You're seated at the table with equal amounts of students and equal amounts of employers. Those same employers are recruiting downstairs at the Career Fair that same day, or at least their firms are there and other representatives of their firm will be there. But you get to actually dine, eat, and have a conversation and get to know each other. They're kind of interviewing you and you're kind of interviewing them. You gain a lot of experience, and hopefully that kind of squelches some of your nervousness about going to the Career Fair. And from those experiences, most students will walk away with a connection for an interview, contact information, kind of even before the actual Career Fair starts. In this new world, we're going to do it virtually. We can't send you food, so you'll have to brown bag it, but we're going to do a similar type of experience with a kind of discussion, a roundtable event. So we're working out the details. Actually, Eric and I are the masterminds of this, and a few other people. So we're going to have to work out the details, but we're excited about the opportunities. The Career Fair, similarly, it's going to be virtual. We've done one, a smaller version in the spring virtually, and it seemed to work well. We're partnering with the Office of Career Planning to figure out the best platforms to do that. But this is an event where about 30 employers come to recruit. So we're looking at this as a great opportunity to really branch out and wrap our arms around students who would have otherwise missed this event because it's primarily in person to now join in.
All right, so the other thing we offer is a bunch of support. All you need to do is make sure you take advantage of it. The thing to note, all these support services, as well as all of these activities, are included in your tuition. In other words, there's no additional cost to taking advantage of these things. So you'll be assigned an advisor who should stay with you for the entire time that you're a student here. So if you ever have a question of what class should I take next? How many classes, given what else I have going in my life, should I take? You know, all these type of questions your advisor can help you with. I want to be clear on the second thing about the tax and accounting tutors, that your faculty are very available to you. To the extent you have questions, you should be able to feel free to reach out to your faculty, your instructor. My students do it all the time, and I have no problem. I have office hours. But if above and beyond that, you can meet with a tutor. The tutor is available via Zoom, and they have office hours. All our tutors are graduates of the Masters of Tax program. So they know what it's like to be a student here, and they can help you. Rocco talked about the Office of Career Planning. I am very impressed about all the resources of the Office of Career Planning. Pretty much anything you can think about, they have. Any research, you're about to interview with a company, you want to learn more about the company. If they have a ton and ton of webinars and things that are already recorded that you can watch on a real-time basis, just-in-time basis. So I copied about 8 of them on the screen to your right, whether we're talking about writing a cover letter or writing your resume or doing an interview or preparing for the career fair, creating an elevator pitch. Almost anything you can think about the process, they kind of have a session on it. And of course, they have a lot of live help. They have counselors. You want to have someone review your resume, they'll do that for you. You want to do a practice interview, you can set up an appointment to do a practice interview and get feedback. They have, in addition to making an appointment, they have like standing office hours where you can just drop in. And I believe they make themselves available certainly via Zoom in addition to in person. Our wellness resources gives you some of the tools to deal with stress, which, look, I did tax for 20 years. It's a great profession, but I'd be lying if it wasn't a certain amount of stress involved in it. So learning how to deal with stress is really important. And helping you network, like I said, we have a tax and accounting club. I think you get to know students in your class because it's a small class setting, but you even get to know more people by being part of the tax and accounting club. And we've got our financial aid department, and we are a supporter of VITA, which is the Volunteer Income Tax Assistance. Whether it's VITA or tax aid, I always have felt that's a great way to give back and a rewarding experience, and an experience that looks great also on your resume. So to be admitted in our program, I will turn it over to the queen of admissions.
Thank you, Eric. I really appreciate it. So I'm just briefly going to go over the admissions requirements and the application process so that we leave plenty of time for questions during this hour. Just a brief overview of admission requirements. The first thing we do look at is your academic history. So we like to see a minimum undergraduate GPA of a 3.0 or higher. Now, if you don't have a 3.0 or higher, can you still apply? Well, absolutely. So what we'll do is ask you for some additional documentation, which I'll explain in just a moment. In addition to the application, we're going to ask you to provide us with an official transcript from your degree conferring institution. So wherever you got your undergraduate degree, and we're also going to request that you provide us with your postgraduate transcripts as well. By official, we mean that those come from your former institution directly to us. We do not require a GMAT or a GRE, and we don't require a resume except in certain circumstances. But I recommend students provide us with a resume if it's readily available, even if it's not required of them. For me and for people reviewing your application, it gives us a little bit of background about who you are and your interest in tax. So that's if you have the 3.0. If you don't have a 3.0 or higher, we ask that you provide us with a statement of purpose. And in that statement of purpose, address the circumstances that you think contributed to your lower GPA at the time, and then ways that you feel ways that you feel that you can be successful in our program, why you're ready to come back to school now, that type of thing, just so we have an idea of what might have happened that contributed to your lower GPA. And this is a circumstance where we do require a resume. That'll give us an opportunity to look at your more current circumstances. So those things are required in addition to your official transcripts. If you're an international student, that's another instance where we do require your official transcripts. If you're submitting transcripts from an international school, and you got your degree in your home country, we're going to ask you to provide us with official transcripts, and we accept them through WES ICAP. In addition, if you're applying as an international student, we recommend you submit a resume. We do that for several reasons, and one has to do with your English language proficiency. We do have an English language proficiency requirement, so you either have to take TOEFL or IELTS, or have satisfied that requirement in a couple of other ways. You can satisfy that requirement, for instance, by attending an English speaking school in an English speaking country. You can also satisfy that requirement by having worked for an English speaking company for a period of years. So there are ways that you can satisfy the requirement short of having to take TOEFL or IELTS. And I just highly recommend that if you're in that situation and you have any question about it, to simply contact me. I also want to just briefly let you know that we do have another option if you aren't certain necessarily that you are ready for to jump into a formal degree program. We do have an open enrollment option. We allow students to take up to 3 courses without formally applying to a program to see if they're ready for the program, particularly if you have the lower GPA. This might be an option for you to sort of test it out and see if you're ready to come back to school to do the program. Those classes in turn would then be rolled over and applied toward your formal degree should you decide to apply to a formal degree program. Next slide.
Oops.
So I did briefly address the English language requirement. Again, if English is not your native language, we do have the English language proficiency requirement and the graduate writing proficiency requirement. Again, those are satisfied. Those can be satisfied through your undergraduate or postgraduate programs or your work experience. And if you have not met those, we do have classes that will enable you to satisfy the requirement. Next. So tuition and fees. What does it cost to attend our program? Right now, our tuition is $1,250 per unit. Our classes are 3 units. So each class is $3,750, and we've got 10 classes for a total of 30 units. So the entire program runs $37,500. This rate will remain in effect through the next year. There won't be any tuition increase this September. So we do advise students that typically we don't adjust the rate for a period of at least a year. As far as additional fees, we do have an $85 tech fee that's charged for every term that you're taking classes in. There are some additional textbook fees and materials fees. Those are pretty nominal these days because most of the professors, as Professor Lee will tell you, most of the professors provide you with the materials you need. You'll get complete access to CCH and RIA Checkpoint. A lot of times you can access the case law, or if it's not readily available, the professor will provide you with that, and of course packet. So there are very few classes these days that actually have textbooks. There's also a $65 application fee, but because you've joined us today and taken the time to learn more about our program, we will waive that $65 application fee for you. And you'll be receiving an email from me tomorrow or so giving you that waiver code. How to pay for your degree. You've got several options. Federal financial aid is available to our graduate students. We do ask you to initiate that process with our financial aid office. There's a form that you fill out in addition to the FAFSA. We are a military-friendly school as well. We're a proud participant since its inception of the Yellow Ribbon Program. And so you can use your military benefits. Again, we have a fabulous VA office which will work with you in coordinating with your VA officer in working through getting your certification for those benefits. And that, for your purposes with the Yellow Ribbon Program, may result in absolutely zero out-of-pocket costs for you. There are some requirements as far as how many classes you need to take to satisfy that. But again, we work very closely with you. There's also opportunities for state aid. We have various named scholarships and tax scholarships and grants. One grant that I do want to bring to your attention is our alumni referral grant. So if you were referred to our program by an alum of GGU, then there is a form that they can fill out, which would make you eligible upon admission for a $1,000 grant for that. We also work very closely with students who are accepted, whose employers are assisting with their tuition payments. So if your employer has an employer tuition assistance program, we'll work with them to help coordinate those payments to minimize your exposure where possible. As far as submitting your application, our admissions office accepts applications on a rolling basis. So whenever you've completed your application, you can go ahead and submit it. We are usually about 2 to 3 terms out. We accept applications year-round and have 3, we're actually on a trimester system. So we've got 3 terms. We've got a fall term, which will start in September, and that will run through December. We have a spring term that will start in January, right after the first of the year, and it'll run through the end of April, beginning of May. And then our summer term will start in May and goes until August. So like I said, regardless of which of those terms you may be applying for, the applications are usually accepted far enough in advance. I believe right now we're accepting at least through spring of 2021. We do have a priority deadline. Those applicants who submit their applications at least 15 days before the start of classes, those applications will be given priority consideration. I do encourage students to apply before the registration deadline because that gives you the best opportunity for course and professor selection. So for fall, our term is going to start September 6th. And our registration will be opening on July 13th. So if you can, I'd encourage you to try to get those applications in by the 13th. As always, if you have any questions whatsoever, I am readily available to answer those for you. And if I can't, I will get the answer for you. I can be reached quickly at my contact information is up on the screen. But the easiest way to reach me probably is by email. I try to respond to those within 24 hours at cgoldberg@ggu.edu. Phew, that leaves us with about 15 minutes for questions.
And we have some questions in the chat box. And Eric, before I start reading them, is there anything else you want to add?
No, I would just say you have a couple of ways to ask a question. You can type it in the chat box at the bottom of your screen. There's a chat button. Or if you click on participants, there is an option to raise your hand, or what I am going to do is I'm going to mute all. If you don't forget to unmute Rocco and Cindy.
Don't mute me, Eric.
If you have a question, just unmute and we'll know you have a question, and we'll call on you. So
Yeah.
so go ahead. You want to take the first one via the chat?
Yeah, so actually, if you do chat, I will read them out loud because I want everybody to hear. You might have the same question. So question is, are there opportunities same for people taking certificate in international tax as for master's in tax? So it really depends. Most people are going to look for the master's in tax, or that you have some level of tax professional behind you. And that if you're really going into, whether it's a master's or just lots of years of experience.
Have that evolve into the master's program? I was wondering,
Yes.
what are the admissions requirements for the certificate?
Same as the master's degree, 3.0,
Okay.
yeah. And so
Okay.
if you're not committed to doing the master's, so that's really fine. I would start off with then the certificate in taxation, which is the first 4 classes, and which are the first kind of 4 classes in the master's group. So then if at one point you're like, I want to come back and do the rest of them, the other 6 classes, then you transfer those in and finish the rest of your 6 classes. Now you have a master's.
Okay, great. And then I have another question. Is there, can we do like 1 class per term? I mean, I'm working full time.
Yeah,
and,
absolutely. Yes,
okay.
you can. So let me just expand a little bit on that. I know, Eric, you're chomping at the bit to jump in. Do you want to jump in first, or?
Go on.
No. Okay, now you got that sad face, Eric. So what I would say is you can do 1 course each term. That wouldn't qualify for federal financial aid if that's what you're looking for. If you have employment remission programs and things like that, that's perfect, because sometimes that's all they will take is up to a certain dollar amount, and that would probably cover the 1 class for each term. You do not have to take classes every term. You just can't be absent or inactive for more than 2 consecutive terms. So if you start in the fall, you take a class, and then you say, oh, I'm not going to go in spring and I'm not going to go in summer, you have to take a class in fall in order to remain active, or you become inactivated. So what happens when you become inactivated? Not a huge issue. Then you just reach out to Cindy or myself saying I'm ready to come back, and we would help you walk through the process. It's really quite an easy process, as long as you do it within 2 years of being inactivated. If you were longer than 2 years, it's not still that much more, because we still have your records. It just means you have to actually physically complete an application. Eric.
So what I wanted to address was Sarah's first question, where she said does she have to be committed to take a master's in tax? As far as commitment from a financial standpoint, correct me if I'm wrong, they only are committed for each class. So if you're taking 1 class, you only are paying the cost for 1 class. You're not like putting down money for 10 classes. Right. You're only making payments for classes as you go.
Yeah, and that's a really good point, Eric, and I'm glad you brought that up, because I think some students get that confused. You just pay as you go, and most degrees are like that. There could be some out there that are more bundled, but you're only paying as you go. Sometimes students, though, feel like, oh, the master's might be too much for me to chew. Let me start off with baby steps. That's where a certificate might work for you. So that's a good idea. Mandeep also asked, can you give a tentative schedule for international tax? So I don't have it. We're working on fall tax classes right now, scheduling. Those will be up probably in the next 2 weeks on the website. So I would just say check back to the website so you can see which classes are being offered. We are working on putting on a schedule that's going to be 2 to 3 years out. That necessarily won't be posted on the general public website, but that will help students in planning. Once they're admitted, it's a student planning tool that we kind of do manually now, but this will be your option to choose how you're going to, which classes you're going to take each term, and it will allow you as a student, once you become admitted, to plan that out so that you are kind of the owner of your destiny, right? But we don't post that on the general website, but each term's schedules will be posted where you can look at them, and you can even access the syllabus for that course once it's posted up there.
That's where your advisor is going to really be helpful to you, because I, as a student, never wanted to take classes in the spring, right? So I actually sat with my advisor and planned when I took the classes. For the master's in tax problem, the required classes was never an issue because it was always offered each semester. But some of the electives I wanted weren't. So it might have just been offered in the summer. So I planned that, okay, this summer I'll take that, and this fall I'll take that. So it's something you absolutely want to do. It's great that you're already thinking about it, because before you take one class, you should really map out what you're going to take for the entire program and what semesters.
Yeah, in some ways, because courses are prerequisites to other courses, it's going to force you to take them in a certain order, so you can't just necessarily jump around in all situations.
But based on your schedule, like if you said you
Yeah.
maybe want to take a semester off, that might affect when you.
Yeah.
Other questions people want to type in the chat, or if you just want to unmute, we'll call on you. And Sarah again.
Yeah, I have another question. You mentioned something about a $1,000 grant for former students. I was wondering if there's a limit to, so I know somebody who went to GGU and got a master's, or got an LLM actually. Is there a limit to how many of those she can sign? Like, would I be taking her only spot if I asked her to do that for me? Or is it
No.
unlimited for her?
Unlimited.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions?
Wow, you did a great job, Eric, in explaining everything.
Yeah.
I've left
It's a quiet bunch.
I've left them speechless. Well, thank you, Sarah and Mandeep. They had all the questions.
Yeah, people are going, great, we got on the right call. I didn't have to ask anything. They just asked them for me.
Well, what typically happens is
Thank you, Reese. So we appreciate you joining us. Sorry,
you
Eric.
take a moment and after the session, then you're like, oh, now I'm thought of a great question. And that's where please feel free to reach out to Cindy and she can either answer it or get the answer for you.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, this is recorded and we'll send that to you, or Cindy will be sending that to you with the application waiver. If you haven't already applied, you can use the waiver to waive the application fee. Yeah.
And we'll be sending the slide deck as well?
Yes.
Yeah, I think so, yeah.
Yeah, it should go out tomorrow.
Thank you, Mandeep.
Well, it's exactly 1 o'clock, so I don't mind staying for a couple more minutes in case there's other questions, but otherwise, I just wish you guys the best on your journey and hope to see you one day in one of these tax classes.
I unfortunately have to jump off because I have to go to another meeting. So
Stay on
I'm
for a
gonna
few
do that.
minutes.
I'm going to do that, but good luck, everybody, and we hope to see you online somewhere else.
Yeah, you can stop the
Thank
recording.
you.
I
Thank
guess.
you, Reese.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Mandy.